Things that fooled people 100 years ago in the vaudeville theaters still fool people today.
Magic isn't just tricks, it's business, influence, and power.
It is show business. 95% of my days are the business side, the logistics, the operations, the planning, the design.
Rob Lake has performed in over 60 countries, headlined Vegas, and created multi-million-dollar stage shows seen by millions.
We've toured over 60 countries so far. I think the key to the success of a magic show, as you know, is the magician's connection to an audience.
But behind the illusions is a business empire built on psychology, precision, and relentless innovation.
When we're rehearsing illusions and putting something new in, we brainstorm, think, what could go wrong? Chances are sometime after thousands of shows, it will happen.
What were some of your biggest learnings from back then?
As they say in magic, there's nothing natural about looking natural.
You had a little reality TV stint with America's Got Talent, wasn't it?
Yeah. We went in thinking, let's try to get 1 million YouTube views. Well, my first performance with them on their channel had almost like 80 million views.
People always think, I just need that one chance on reality TV, or I just need that one billboard.
It was not the magic bullet. It did not change me overnight. It's one more selling point. It's one more tool in the chest. You always want to have as many tools available as you can.
One of the things you find so many people doing on social media is trying to copy somebody else's character.
I think we all crave that authentic connection now so desperately, which is why I think magic is coming back. Come on this journey where I'm going to bend the laws around you in our world, but we're all going to have fun together.
What can entrepreneurs learn from a world-class illusionist? A lot more than you think.
Guys, Matt Haycock's here, and it is a first time for us on the podcast today. The first time we have ever had a magician as a guest, and not just any magician, but master magician, master illusionist. Rob Lake is here, so thanks a lot for being here, Rob.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
All the way to Dubai. It was a serendipitous booking or appearance on the podcast. Literally about a week or so ago, someone who works with me, she messaged me just saying, I know you like your magic. I've booked a magic show on Friday. You might want to get tickets yourself as well. So I looked on and got the tickets, and started having a look at the show. I thought I'm going to have to reach out to you while you're here. And,
I'm glad you did. Thank you. Thank you for connecting.
How does Dubai compare to some of the other countries that you've been to for performing in?
I often say flattering things about the cities because we've toured over 60 countries so far, and I say, oh, it's amazing. There's nothing like it. But really, with Dubai, there's nothing like it. It is so distinct and unique and clean and futuristic, and it's just really special and really a wonderful, great place. And the people here, it's like a melting pot of all these different cultures.
I always talk about Dubai as being kind of like Vegas without the gambling. And we were just talking a bit about Vegas a bit before we came on camera. I mean, I lived there for many years, and I was I'm a big fan of Vegas. But I mean, I can feel there's many similarities between the two, but I do think the one thing we lack here compared to Vegas is shows.
Yes, I would agree.
There's some, but not many. I mean,
right.
I guess how do the shows actually compare to like a Vegas when you're actually performing in them?
Sure. I think it's different here. Like my favorite thing in Vegas is the restaurant scene, and you all definitely match that for sure. And in Vegas, you have those casinos, and those casinos, use the entertainment and the shows to bring people in. And the casinos, are willing to use it as a marketing expense just to get you come in to gamble. So that's probably why there aren't the shows here yet, because the casinos really aren't here yet. And it's a culture that kind of has to facilitate and support full-time shows in lots of them. Even other big cities like New York or LA, or even Chicago in the US or London, or almost every city in Germany, they have resident shows and long-running shows. So that's one thing I would say is different about Dubai, is it's lacking the sustainability for long running shows. You have wonderful touring shows. You get the best of the world that comes to perform here. But as far as the audience goes, it is very, what's exciting about a live show, with so many cultures and backgrounds, you have all of these people reacting the exact same way, no matter their background, no matter their economics or finances. And that's really unique here in Dubai more than anywhere else. In a lot of other places like Vegas, a lot of the audience is very similar.
Well, let's we'll talk more about different countries and audiences soon. Let's rewind to the beginning. And when did your magic journey start for you?
So I started when I was 10 years old and got into magic like you probably did as a kid. Yeah. I just never grew up. When I was 10, I knew immediately that I would be doing this my entire life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. I'd text you a couple of times before this, and so my initial or my first passion was always magic, and my first job was a magician as well. I mean, it's fun. I mean, if you'd have asked me back then, I would have dreamt of being the next Copperfield.
Sure.
I think we're probably a similar age.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I started to do my tricks at like 9, 10, 11, and I remember David Copperfield came to the UK. What must have been 92, 93 or something. When he'd first come on that when he first come on the world tour, and I was absolutely obsessed. And then my first job, I wanted a watch. Actually, it wasn't even so much that I wanted a job. I just wanted a watch, and my parents wouldn't buy me this watch. And my mum and dad said, "You got to go and work." And I thought, my God, it's an expensive watch. If I go and get the same kind of job as my friends, it's going to take me about 15 years. So I went to the local Italian restaurant and asked him if I could perform, and he said that he wouldn't pay me, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. And obviously, in hindsight, it was the best opportunity he could have given me to go in. But I'm thinking, oh God, I'm not working if I'm not getting paid. But I also can't, don't want to be rude and can't back down. So I said, sure, I'll come on the Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't pay me, but I was doing.
You probably got tips though,
I was
right?
doing maybe like £300, and so what's that, like $400?
Yeah.
In 1996,
As a kid.
1997. Which was fantastic. I bought the watch in about 6 weeks instead of about 15 years. But then I don't really know what happened. I think I just got a bit older, and I guess adult life took over. And
well, you probably found better ways to make money than show business for sure.
Well, I guess did you, when you said, I guess you never grew up and you always wanted to do it, did you know that's where your career was going to be?
Oh, absolutely. When I saw the show when I was 10, it was like I was programmed or downloaded or given this divine instruction that this is what I will do. And there was never a doubt. So I had this certainty my whole life that really was like a driving force as a passion to push me forward and push me through.
And was that going to be that you were going to be a big star? You were going to be traveling the world, or just that?
Yeah, I mean, it was never the fame. In fact, when I'm not on stage, I'm very reserved. I'm very isolated and private. I'm introverted. I like to recover and recharge alone. So I've had to kind of get used to the fame part of it and being recognized. And I realized that's part of what I signed up for. So I handle it well. I'm used to it, but at the same time, I like my private time. So I never chose this to be famous. I think I just wanted to do the best job I could do and not really comparing myself. One of my magic mentors, amazing comedy magician who helped me so much in my life, and he died way too soon, he always taught me that the only competition was myself. And it took me years to realize that, but when I push myself now, I'm judging myself against myself. I'm pushing myself to make sure I'm not cutting any corners or slacking off. I'm very honest. And I say, can I do any better? And then I say, if I was judging someone else doing this, what would I say? Not trying to give myself excuses. So I think I've just pushed myself because I know I can go further, not really like for the fame.
And how did your journey, or how does let's say a typical, if there is such a thing as a typical magician who wants to to make it in the big leagues go? Because I guess as amateur magicians, as kids, we all probably, or not probably, I would say, as a what's the word, a byproduct of budgets.
Yes.
We do card tricks, we do coin
absolutely,
tricks, we do, because it's cheap, it's realistic.
Well, it's accessible.
And I guess the magicians that become famous or that people want to go and see typically in shows, not always, but typically it's big scale illusions and stuff. How does that progression journey happen? Because I mean, they are also two very different kinds of magic and very different skill sets.
There are. I mean, it's kind of the difference between magic, which is really everything that people consider sleight of hand, close-up more magic, and then illusion is the theatrical side. So when I started at 10, I knew I wanted to do illusions, and I would take cardboard boxes and try to build illusions with tape and paint and boxes to try to cut my sister in half or anything I could. But I would do every day. I would go to school. I would take, I'd be loaded. I have all the tricks I would do in my pockets and loaded so I could make the pencil float or something during class, and I would make everyone watch me do my tricks. And I did restaurants too. We probably did the same, tricks in the walk around magic.
Sponge balls.
Oh, that's still one of my favorites. I actually have nieces. I was looking for a set of it, and I found it. They are all deteriorated, so I ordered some right before I left because I love sponge balls and the chop cup, and we could probably go a whole list of all the things
Dynamic coins.
Yes, I mean the ultimate restaurant magic. And I talked to kids today, and I say you got to do restaurants. You got to start this. But whenever I did a restaurant or a birthday party or the local civic group or a church group, I would make a small amount of money, because magicians they charge more than we ever could have back then. But I would save it, and I would buy either a bigger trick for a stand-up party show, or I'd save it for an illusion. I'd go to the local magic organization, and it's the swap meet and buy someone's hand-me-down illusions. And I just really, piece by piece, built my show up. You saved up for a watch. I was saving up for a magic box. And once I had that, I would add it to the show, and then I would keep going, add up more and more, add it to the show. So my entire career, which is the same as my entire life, I've been building this show piece by piece, incrementally.
Let me hit you with a mad stat. You are probably not subscribed. Seriously, 58% of the people who listen to this podcast every single week do not hit that subscribe button. That is more than half of you. So let's fix this right now. The goal here is super simple. We grow the podcast, we bring in bigger guests, and we give you even more no bullshit, actionable insights to level up your business and to level up your life. Now in business, you set SMART goals. That's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Well, here's one for you. Let's get that 58% down to well below 50% in the next 3 months. So please do me a quick favor. If this podcast has ever given you one good idea, one piece of advice that's helped you or helped your business, then hit that subscribe button. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it means that I can keep bringing you even bigger and better guests, giving you even bigger and better insights. Go on, do it now. I'll wait. Done? Perfect. Great choice. Let's grow this together.
Is there as a layman, obviously I know a bit about magic, but still obviously a layman in terms of the illusion side of things. My initial thought would be there's not so much different skills, but almost like less skill in the magic of the illusion compared to the actual presentation and showmanship. Like, when you talk about manipulating cards and all, I mean that's stuff that people can commit a lifetime to doing.
Totally.
And I guess without pulling back the curtain on how the illusions work, you'd almost imagine a lot of the illusions, the work's done in the illusion. It's the box, and you just have to present it.
So I think let me think of the best way, because it's a very good question. So let me think of the best way to navigate this without saying too much magically. There are a lot of illusions or magic tricks you can buy off the shelf and stand in front of and wave your arm and do things, make people appear, disappear. You can shove the spikes to the girl. Things that I kind of call catalog tricks. You order it, it comes in, it's ready to go. And when we were growing up in magic was on TV, magic was in every casino, every amusement park. Magic was everywhere, a lot more than it is now. And I think there's a kind of a feeling from the close-up guys who spend hours and hours practicing sleight of hand that stage illusionists can just order something and have a show that week and throw it together. And that's technically true, but if you see a lot of those guys who do that kind of catalog magic, you can kind of tell. It doesn't feel, it's not usually not a great show, and it just feels like they're kind of just waving their arms in this egotistical, attention getting away. Not to diss those who do it, because there's some really great people out there. I think the difference for me is I definitely started that way, and I had seen someone do a trick. Oh, I want to do that. But I quickly learned it wasn't a good show because it wasn't me really figuring out how to perform as myself. So today, I don't spend 16 weeks perfecting a sleight of hand move with a card, but I might spend 16 months or even 16 years perfecting the deception or the design or the engineering of an illusion. And a lot of my things were kind of going boxless in my show, so it's just me doing these things. It's not like I'm going in a box and then something happens. I try to kind of remove that idea of the magic box and the prop being the trick and really explore, if this was real magic, what would it look like? If this was real, how would it be perceived? And then I don't let myself put that into the show until I figured it out.
And how much of the kind of design and technicality do you do? Because again, when I used to read all the magazines every week and stuff, there'd be certain illusion manufacturers. I forget the names now, but the guys that'd be appearing time after time. This is a person to go to, and he's got these 20 illusions.
Yeah, and there's a price for this, and you can
Or he's used to make stuff especially for magicians or for TV or whatever. I mean, do you job a lot of stuff out, or
no.
are you intimately involved?
1,000%. Everything we do is in sight because I'm hands-on with every little detail to the lowest little centimeter or half inch. I'm there from the prototype to the model to everything, and it's not because I'm controlling it all, but because in magic the smallest detail makes a big difference. and we might spend years and years or decades building an illusion before we get it right. And that just takes, and you can't really mock it up in cardboard form too much because these are things I have to fit in or do or utilize myself. So it has to be a full size, full all out build. And sometimes we get it right early on. Sometimes it takes many, many versions. So I'm very hands on, and I have a wonderful shop in the very center of the U.S. where we build and fabricate and engineer the entire show.
It's your own shop.
My own shop. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting again when we talk about say different versions and changing things, because I guess in its simplest form, the audience know it's not magic.
Yeah.
They're there to be entertained. They know that a girl's not being cut in half, and so I guess at what point does someone stop? Let's say almost like inventing a better mousetrap. Reiterating a new way to cut someone in half. Because at the end of the day, if the girl's cut in half and you can't see how it's done, does it really matter if you've done it in that version or that version?
I think it
how
does.
Does someone bring the best show to it?
Yeah, I think it does for
really?
a couple of reasons. I think one part of it is if it's well done, you've given them reason to not have any clue or any guess how it's done. So if that's the point where they have to surrender, say, I have no idea, then you've really won, and then they are really questioning, did he really cut her in half? Because logic says we can't, but your mind is telling you there's no other explanation other than that's what it was. So I push myself to get to that point of being able to really eliminate every guess and possibility, because if they guess how it's done, even if they're way off, it's almost as if they know.
Sure.
And so we really work that way. So I think it is that way. And I think people really still come to it for the same reason. Things that fooled people 100 years ago in the vaudeville theaters still fool people today. If we had a box and it's been there the whole show, we open it up and it says something, that's amazing. But if we had this whole gadget that had flashing lights and a cord plugged into it and this paper comes out of it, no one would be fooled. So the things that would have worked years ago still amaze people. And even though they know it can't be real, they kind of want to believe, because I think now, even more than in the past, there's a starvation for connection, for hope, and ultimately for wonder and enchantment. And I think a live magic show gives that better than anything.
What do you think has caused over the last few years or so of less magic being around, or less magic shows? I mean, the last big era, if you want to call it that, I remember, because you talk about the vaudeville shows, and if you go back in the day, it's all the top hat and tails, and then it was quite comedic, and then
Correct.
It was very David Copperfield-y, amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say that the last kind of iteration of magic was the street magicians.
Oh, for sure.
The I guess the social media type tricks,
yeah.
but and that got big, and then it has kind of died off a bit since. And what do you think?
I think it always goes through waves. If you look at the history, vaudeville was, magic was very important. The golden era, Houdini, Thurston, Carter, was really a big wave, and then it kind of went down, and then you had with TV people like Mark Wilson or Paul Daniels, and then you had Doug Henning, kind of making magic hip and cool and relevant to that era, and then of course Copperfield, and then in the '90s, everywhere had magic everywhere, kind of exploded, overexpanded. I think it goes through cycles and waves. And I think there's definitely a shortage of really great magic. When I talk to younger magicians now, I say, how lucky I was to grow up in the late 90s when magic, Copperfield had specials, Lance Burton had specials, Siegfried and Roy, the world's greatest magic. And it was really, all of it was really great. The bar was really, really good. And not only is there a shortage of magic now, I think there's a shortage of the standard of what's really good now. So I encourage the younger magicians to go out and see it. I do believe it goes through cycles and waves, like all forms of entertainment do. And I kind of feel like we're back in that again, because I think people are looking for escapism and something they can experience with their friends and family, where it's not a rating of a movie you don't want to take everyone to. I think there's kind of more of a need to reconnect in an experiential way.
It's interesting as well, though, because we talk about the big specials of the 90s and stuff, and I guess whilst on the one hand that side of things isn't around, putting a kind of let's say a businessy spin on this next bit, what is around now that wasn't back then is the ease of accessing a world audience, you know, in
Totally.
terms of the social medias, the YouTubes, and the ability for people to go and get themselves in front of that world audience, you know, to make themselves famous, to raise money peer to peer, or, you know, whatever it may be. And you know, it's been done with film, it's been done with musicians, and you know, it would be an opportune, I think, you know, environment to do it with magic as well. But you know, other than a few people who are a bit social media famous, I don't think that's been used to the effect it could have been.
No, not probably fully to the fullest extent, but also I think really, you know, a lot of people are doing great with social media on you know, magic, and it's wonderful for them. I think to really experience magic and really appreciate it, you have to feel it live. And I think it will always be a live form. Even if you saw a TV special, seeing it live is much more important. And I think also that's part of it too. I think, you know, there's always this feeling if you're watching it on a screen or your phone, you're always thinking, oh, it's a camera trick, or oh, it's fake. Even if you know, there's a logical reason where it wouldn't be, or an audience, nothing beats feeling it and experiencing it and being part of it live.
Most business advice is motivational fluff. It's empty promises and it's untested ideas by people who have never even tried to apply them. It's bollocks, but you're not going to get that here. And that is why I call it No Bollocks. The No Bollocks newsletter is straight talking, high impact, zero time wasting, tried, tested, and immediately actionable. 2 emails a week, insider strategies, brutally honest insights, and the answers to the questions that you're asking, or you should be asking. And the best part, you're going to learn more in 10 minutes than most people learn in a 3-year MBA. Over 20,000 people a week are already in. So don't be the one that's missing out. Hit the link in the show notes, because you just need one email that could be the one that changes everything.
So how did your journey go from being kid making a few extra bucks to, you know, to actually making that full-time transition into you know, again, how did you get your work?
Sure. It wasn't easy. I dropped out of college when I was 20, thinking, oh, tomorrow I'll get my Vegas contract. Or, you know, I thought it would be, you know, instantaneous, because I was so passionate and so driven, so focused, and I'd worked every day of my life to study, to grow, to learn, to acquire some illusions. It took a couple of years. I was couch surfing with friends and relatives. I would have to borrow illusions and equipment from other friends. And I've got my first gig, which was a theme park in Japan. And I thought I'd made it. I was on billboards, on TV ads, you know, I was around the world. You know, looking back, it was pathetic. It was terrible.
But that sounds a big gig. Like, you know, I thought you were going to say, like, I got my first gig, you know, at a kid's party.
Sure. I did the parties when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. I was doing birthday parties or church shows or even restaurant things as a kid. You know, but I really didn't consider my first, like, professional gig when I was 21, 22, and I was in Japan for 6 months.
Wow.
And, you know, now the theater had AstroTurf on the stage, and the roof leaked everywhere, and it was, you know, a terrible gig. There's never anyone in the park, even our audience, you know, but the show went on. But I used that opportunity to grow. I said, I'm here for several months. I'm going to make sure I watch every show video, take notes, and by the time I leave here, I need to be a much stronger and better and more seasoned performer than when I started. And I did.
What were some of your biggest learnings from back then? What were some of the things that, you know, when you were watching those show videos back, you think, oh shit, that's you know, that's something I've really got to correct that I wasn't noticing if I wasn't watching the video.
Yeah. I mean, you know, showmanship, you know, which is a really broad topic, but you know, how to present to an audience and how to kind of own the stage and still, you know, be connected with an audience. That was a lot of it, and how to really move as a performer, because moving on stage is totally different than moving, you know, just normally in life. You know, as they say in magic, you know, there's nothing natural about looking natural, and that also applies even more so just to showmanship on stage. So learned that a lot. Timing, you know, how I was stretching things out really long and awkwardly for no reason, just because I thought, oh, you magicians should do this. And ultimately, that in the next several years after that, not only was I perfecting performing and making the illusions better and, you know, tighter and not shorter because it was just running long, but just get to the point already, I really found how to be myself on stage. And I had to kind of find my own persona and my own character on stage, because I am me on stage, but I kind of extract several elements of my personality from myself on stage. Then I just turn the knobs way up and the volume way up on those parts of me. just for the show. And I had to find that, and that was the balance that you can only get from lots and lots of experience.
I think, when I ever do podcasts with people who are, let's say, not from the business world. I mean, obviously there's the business side of magic, but let's say if it's an entertainer or a celebrity or whatever it may be, I always still try and find some business parallels that I can talk about with my audience. And the thing that was immediately ringing true to me there was that importance of authenticity. Because
absolutely.
Again, one of the things you find so many people doing on social media is trying to copy somebody else's character.
Totally.
And it's totally not them. And they always think, I need to be like that person because he's got the likes or he's famous. And I guess, I always say when it comes to the content that we talk about, if we're giving business advice or whatever it may be, within reason, 90% of it's the same. Ultimately, I'll tell you a marketing strategy which could be identical to that one, or 90% the same, whatever.
For sure.
But what the difference is, do you want Grant Cardone? Do you want an aggressive American delivery? Do you want a less aggressive English delivery? Do you want a sweet old Japanese lady doing it? I mean, ultimately, every audience wants something a bit differently, and to a degree, you cut a lady in half, but how do you do it? How do you present it? How do you do it with that authenticity? And I think if that's the one single word, the one magic ingredient everybody needs in any walk of life, from entertainment to business to getting a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, whether it's a magic show or not, I think the key to the success of a magic show, is the magician's connection to an audience. And especially now more than ever, because there's so much inauthentic everything, from ads to social media. There's nothing real about reality TV. There's nothing real on social media. I think having that authentic connection is what allows you to connect an audience and take them on the journey with you. And the same could apply to every single business. We join a business because of the people more than the product, or, the relationship we have more than the name of the company. And that only comes from being authentic and real. And I think we all crave that authentic connection now so desperately, which is why I think magic is coming back, which is ironic because magic is all about deception. So here I am talking about authenticity. But to be a successful magician, you have to be authentic as yourself. I'm coming on stage saying, here's me, here's who I am. Come on this journey where I'm going to bend the laws around you in our world, but we're all going to have fun together.
You just mentioned reality TV. Then you had a little reality TV stint with it was America's Got Talent. Wasn't it? Yeah. How was that experience?
It was truly exhausting. It was fun, but it was great. We went on thinking, because they'd called me for 11 or 12 years before I did it, and I said no every time.
Why?
Several reasons. Most of the time, I was already so booked and so busy. I would have had to cancel shows to do the show, and I just thought it wasn't worth it. And then also they had a 95-page contract where if they chose, they could own you for life. And I just never signed. I was already doing shows. We were pretty successful. And I just didn't want to sign everything away. And they finally said, we really want this content on our show. And I said, okay, but I won't sign your contract. And they let me mark out almost everything on the contract. And I also knew I could only film these certain days that year because we were really booked. But it was fun. I went in thinking, let's do one episode and then go on with our lives. Maybe we'll get 1 million YouTube views. And I went on the stage, and I'm so busy, I hardly get time to watch TV. And I really had underestimated the reach and the size of the show. But I'm there performing, and there are more than 300 crew members working on the show.
Wow.
And I asked one of them, how many viewers do you get per episode? And they said, 16 to 20 million. That's just the broadcast. Don't even forget YouTube and all that. So I realized it was a really big thing, and we moved heaven and earth to do a few more shoots with them. And I flew back. I paused a European tour to fly back for 2 days to film a thing and fly back to Europe and finish the tour. And I had to cancel some days in the summer to film a thing. So it really was great. And I don't know, there's no way I will ever know how much it changed the business. I think it definitely created awareness. I just know it's a great talking point people love to mention, and it's kind of a credibility thing, I guess. But we still are, our business has been about the same before and after. But there's a great marketing and value and appeal, and I totally underestimated the show. We went in thinking, let's try to get 1 million YouTube views. Well, my first performance with them on their channel had almost 80 million views.
Wow.
and it just completely blew my expectations.
But it's very interesting what you say there, though, as well about your business was about the same before and about afterwards, and not comparing my little forays into low rent reality TV to yours and your show. But I've done a few things over the years of like life swaps and rich house, poor house, this kind of thing, and because I think people always think, oh, I just need that one chance on reality TV, or I just need that one billboard, or that one whatever it may be. And every time I've gone on TV, yes, when it airs that particular day, my Instagram gets busy, Twitter gets busy. If I've talked about a corporate business, we get 10x the number of hits on the website.
Sure.
Then we wake up again tomorrow, and nothing's
Absolutely.
any different.
Yeah.
And what would so you'd ask the question, well, why do I do it? Well, I say, well, it's an experience and fun, but also I guess the content that's out there is there as a credibility builder for next time. The next time an agent or someone wants to book you or something, they might not have seen about you on the American telly, but they Google you and they see you there, and it looks good. But I always do find it interesting how everyone imagines it's that silver bullet that's going to absolutely change your life, but it just doesn't.
It's like anything, especially in business and life. It's what you make of it. We take it and we've run with it. We send, if we are talking to a venue who wants to book us or an agent, we say, oh, did you see this? We did on an AGT a few years ago. It's one more selling point. It's one more tool in the chest. It was not the magic bullet. It did not change me overnight. Great. Yeah. All my friends I grew up with, I hadn't heard from years. Everybody called and reached out and everybody's talked. Okay, fun. But, 2 or 3 months later, back to life as normal. But it's like, what can you use? It's one more tool in the arsenal. And you always want to have as many tools available as you can.
What does a typical day or week look like for you? I guess when I was thinking about this question, I'm thinking about it in the context of like the analogy of a professional footballer or professional sports person. Like Saturday's game day, or Sunday to you Americans.
Of course,
Sunday's game day. But during the week, and I guess you've got two kinds of pro, haven't you? You've got the, you might say they're utterly gifted, but I'd say they might be gifted but lazy. And then you've got the other one who just works his arse off. But one way or the other, they're somewhere between training an hour a day and 8 hours a day, and doing the nutrition and doing the this and doing the other. But it all comes into that culmination, on a Sunday. I mean, when you're not performing shows, are you always working on new tricks? Are you always practicing sleight of hand? Are you watching back? I mean, is it a full-time job off stage as well as on stage?
No, not at all. I'd say it's more like 13 full-time jobs all at once. It's all of that. It's the, I'm working to perfect and work on notes from last night's show. I'm working on the business logistics and, planning, we actually have 2 sets of the show, so we can, ship things overseas, because with shipping, it takes months and months to get there. I'm working on, I'm also probably flying to or from a show. I'm checking in with my warehouse. I'm drawing up new illusion designs, either for my own show, or I design illusions for Broadway shows and concerts and other things too. I'm saying, hey, can we revisit this? I think we can make this better. So I'm always doing all of these things all at once. So it's like I never turn off, but it's all by choice. It's how I work. If I'm home with nothing to do, I'm miserably bored and antsy and need to find something to do.
So I mean, do you consider yourself a businessman as well as an entertainer?
Absolutely. It is show business, and I would say 95% of my days are the business side, the logistics, the operations, the planning, the design. And then the tip of the iceberg is the performance, where I get to turn off every other part and just focus on having fun and doing a show.
So, I mean, I don't know how much you're happy to talk about, not talk about, but I mean, tell me a bit about, I don't know, like the team and the economics and things, bit behind, life as a professional, touring magician. I mean, like how many people work with you? I mean, you talk about like two sets of equipment. I mean, I was actually going to say to you, how does that work? Because I've seen your schedule, and you've got all this tour around.
Sure.
Does the kit move around? Like, do you have the logistics? Like, do you need investors? I don't know.
Yes. So I've never sought an investor for my show. I've financed everything myself from doing it incrementally my whole life. And for the first time ever, we're working on a project for the end of this year that we are having outside investors, just because of the nature of this project. You really kind of can't do it in this realm without it, not as much from a financial way, but more you need the involvement of certain people, which also comes with financial ties. So I have a cast and crew that travel with me to my shows. That's about 20 people, the dancers, the illusion technicians, the lighting, the sound, the video people, who are all kind of the magic family for the team. And
They're full-time on the
Yep.
payroll, or your people?
Yep, and then we have a warehouse staff, which is the fabricate, just the warehouse operations. You know, they get the trucks ready, they get the equipment ready. When it comes in, they check it and manage it. And then we also have several fabricators that we bring in depending on the project we're working on. And right now we're building about 6 new illusions, and they're all really close to getting to rehearsals. So we have a lot of things moving all at the same time for that. So that's kind of the operations side, and it's really managing all that because we didn't have 2 sets of equipment all the time. But when we were doing a lot of overseas shows, we had to replicate it because it takes months and months to ship it across the world, and that means I can't work if I don't have that much time. So since that time, we've got 2 copies of the main show where all the equipment can go. So literally, I could be the only piece that moves if need to. And then we have created so many other illusions that even if we need a 3rd set, we have enough. We could put another show together too, just from my inventory of magic that we have.
When do you decide it's time to take an illusion out and bring a new one in?
When the show gets too long. It's hard. It's hard because these things I've spent my life creating, so they're like children. So it's really hard to retire them or move them on. But we kind of can move them around, so which we have different versions of the show. I can say, hey, let's put this one there and take this here. We can have shuffling around. But I also look at the show with a very truthful lens. And I watch the show. If I'm watching a show video, say, that's new thing we entered is great. It's getting great reactions. And it's kind of redundant if I do this other thing kind of has a similar feel later in the show. So I really don't need 2 of these. Let's take this new one, run with it. Or I'll say the new one needs to get more gags, more fun, more humor, more polish before it can take over and keep it together. So I'm really objective when I look at the show and see how it is. Because I keep saying it's a journey that we take the audience on. So the show it's not just me doing trick. We go up and down. We have the pace of the show. We flow the show really, really well. And that helps me decide what needs to be in the show or what should come out.
We were talking a little bit about Vegas earlier, and also Vegas before we started recording. And I remember back when I was there was some massive numbers bandied around with magic, and you mentioned Lance Burton.
Yeah.
And I forget the number, but I always remember it was like a big thing. Which hotel was he in?
He was at the Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo.
Yeah.
I was going to say Mirage. Monte
And
Carlo.
I just saw his show. He's actually doing a show with some of his friends. He turned around, I saw him a few months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where is he now? Still in Vegas?
No, he retired, but he's in his retirement. He's driving around in his bus with some of his magic friends, and they're just doing little shows in towns. And it was really exciting to see him again.
Because I remember at the time, I think it was like a $50 million
Yeah,
theatre or
absurd.
something.
Yeah, beautiful, yeah.
And we were talking about Steve Wyrick as well. Like it was a $50-60 million or something. He raised an investment. I mean, where do these astronomical numbers come from?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think to build a theater and to own and operate, that's where I think most of it's in the operations of the actual physical theater.
Okay, but it's just I guess it's almost like PR chat, really.
It could be. I don't know the specifics or their details, and it was not part of their deals. But I think, from my perspective, it feels like it's great. It's great to throw numbers around like that.
So, I mean, what does the future hold for you? I mean, how do you, how do you see the next 20 years of doing this? I mean, obviously from a personal perspective, I'm sure you're going to want magic around you forever. But what does the business future of it look like? Can you bring up and coming magicians and almost
Sure.
like invest in them and create magic for them?
I sure could if the right opportunity came. But right now, I'm very passion driven. So as long as I'm passionate and still pushing forward and still driving myself and still having these creative ideas, I don't see myself slowing down or stopping at all. And in fact, the things I'm working now on in the next few years, I've been kind of working my entire life towards. So it's like great to finally be right on the approach. But even still, as you can relate to a creative and out of the box thinker, I'm only mentally and personally as good as the next ladder rung ahead of me. So even though I have all these things I've been working on, they're right here, they're approaching, I'm still thinking, okay, but what's after that? What's next? What's next? And I have to stop and remind myself all the time, like, of all the really cool and exciting things I've done so I can really appreciate and be grateful for them. And remember to pause and look back because I really am so forward focused and focusing on the next illusion, the next kind of milestone I'm going for, the next collaboration, whatever it is I'm working on. I'm so honed in on that. I have to keep reminding myself of all the adventures I've had so far and to really be able to celebrate and take a moment and pause and enjoy that too.
Are there any things you particularly look back and think, oh shit, I regret that, or I really cocked that up, or I should have done that differently?
Yeah, but as long as I can see what I learned from it, I don't beat myself up too much for it. And the only times I really regret things are whenever I knew better, and I did it anyways for whatever reasons, for convenience. Whether it's like I should have moved away from working with a certain agent or person, but I stay with them from convenience. Better the devil you know. Every time I have a regret that I get mad at myself, it's because I knew better and I kind of just probably took the laziest or the easiest way out, which I thought was best at the time.
Have you ever had a trick go very, very wrong in a big live audience?
Nothing really dramatic and and drama and TV reality style capable to really excite people. But we've had things like the power goes out in the theater, the theater's curtain gets stuck in, or the theater loses all communications for the computers and everything. That happens. It's a live show. But when we create an illusion, we try to think of every contingency that could possibly go wrong, and we don't put it in the show until the entire crew and the cast and everyone is ready to go to plan B, plan C, plan D, whatever it is, just so we can never expose the magic but keep the show moving.
I mean, I guess you must have witnessed it happen to other people. I mean, when, and I can't think of an example of what it may be, but a trick gets completely exposed or something.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a contingency in place for that, or do you just have to fess up and go whoopsie?
No, we actually plan when we're rehearsing illusions and putting something new in. We brainstorm, think what could go wrong. What, even if it's the most weird, strange, unusual thing, what could it go wrong? Because chances are, sometime after thousands of shows, it will happen. So we do our best to plan ahead and think of what possibly could go wrong. I was in South Africa this last year, and I do an illusion where I levitate my assistant on a fountain of water. And we're about to do the illusion. We're on the stage. The water comes up, and then the water just stops. And the girl's about to start levitating, and they're with the wings just saying no, no, no. Well, the system that was providing the power for the water pumps just died. And then they lost all the power backstage. And so we couldn't perform the illusion because the water wouldn't go. And it's like, and during those moments, I think, okay, do I just change the routine and perform it without the water, just levitate here? And then but I also didn't know how long it's going to take to fix, what's going to happen. I didn't want to be performing it, and all of a sudden the water comes on and full blast and just shoot, waterboards her or me. So I just took the safety always first. But that's something we kind of had a plan. They knew how to communicate to me that we stop, no go, and move on. But that's something that there's nothing in our power we could have done to prevent that.
One of the things that I talk a lot about now, which is something I regret not having in my younger days, is mentors, and access, well, whether it's official mentors, unofficial mentors, in person, online,
Sure.
whatever it may be. I think, from my time around magic, it was certainly an industry or a craft where, the word mentorship is thrown around a lot
Absolutely.
more, and the older guys,
Yeah.
bring the up and comers. Have you got any particular mentors of your own? Has it been
Sure.
important in your career?
I had many. I had several who are still around. Like in fact, if you remember Brett Daniels, magician from the TV specials,
Yeah.
he actually came to my show a few weeks ago. It was great to see him. I knew a lot of people like him. I was acquaintance with. They were very patient and gracious with their time and advice, and always willing to give advice and listen to me and steer me in the right direction. But I had two mentors that were honestly so good. I was so lucky. One was Jim Smith, and he was a comedy magician, and one of the greatest humans who I've ever met. And then the other one was the first magic show I ever saw was Kirby Van Birch, and he had a massive show with the Tigers, with the helicopter, with a really big show. And then, not only did he first inspire me, but a few years later, he really helped me launch my career. I lived in his guest house for a few months when I was starting to start my career, and he would loan me his equipment and help me start things out. And he's still around, and he's still a good friend. And those were the two mentors who really helped me the most over my career, and would help me listen. And most of all, I think they helped me learn. Like, they would point out when I was having troubles, like, that I needed to learn from these situations, and I learned a lot of what not to do from the bad experiences in show business starting out.
So you mentioned the Tigers and things. I mean, it's been a long time since you really see that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it'll happen again.
Well, I saw Siegfried and Roy about a week before the accident.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, this must be 2020. Yeah, sorry, I was going to say 21. I meant 2001, 2002, that kind of time. Yeah, I remember one of my first trips to Vegas.
Sure.
when that happened.
But what a show that was.
Yeah.
And then I think Siegfried was the greatest magic showman of the last century. He was so amazing as a performer.
Did one of them die?
They both passed.
Oh, they
yeah,
both-
yeah,
both-
yeah,
yeah,
they both
okay.
passed. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, Rob, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Hey, this has been fun. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for finding the time, and I can't wait for the show. I mean, by the time this comes out, the Dubai show will be finished. But how can people come and see you, connect with you? What should people do?
roblake.com is the website with all the videos, and then Rob Lake Magic is the same on all of the platforms, which I have my videos. You can see my adventures around the world and come with me and be part of the magic.
And where's the tour going to after here?
Let's see. We go to India. We're back in I think we're back in the Bahamas at Atlantis, the original Atlantis there over the summer. And then all around the world again through the fall next year.
Do you ever have to change a show, as in like for cultural differences?
Not really. I mean, we've performed, all across Asia and all around the Middle East, and sometimes some costumes will change a little bit here or there, but really it's still it's not a children's show, as you know, but it's a very family friendly show, so that kind of helps it appeal with all demographics and cultures.
Well, look, it's been a long time since I've seen a show. I'm looking forward to
Can't wait to have you.
Forward to seeing the sponge balls coming out.
I don't know if we'll be in the show, but yeah. I should, yeah.
I'll bring mine with me in case I catch up with you afterwards.
Yeah. I'd love that.
Thanks a lot, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to No Bollocks with Matt Haycox. Today's conversation was packed with actionable insights, and I'm super grateful that you joined us. Now, our community now boasts 160,000 downloads a month of this podcast, and that is a testament to entrepreneurs just like you who refuse to settle for mediocrity. So don't miss out. Subscribe now and gain exclusive access to the conversations that can transform your business and transform your life. Also, while you're at it, if you could visit www.matt-haycox.com or click the link in the show notes below, and please sign up to the No Bollocks newsletter. That's like the sister newsletter that lives with this podcast. Every week I send 2 emails, and in just 10 minutes you're going to gain more knowledge than most people do in a 3-year MBA. So please subscribe, rate, share this episode with someone who needs a No Bollocks boost. And until next time, keep hustling and keep winning.